Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to the Mel Blackwell Experience on this July 1st, the year of our Lord, 2026. Can you believe this great and wonderful republic is about to be 250 years old? In honor of that, let's get started today with Ronald Reagan.
We are a nation that has a government, not the other way around. And this makes us special among the nations of the earth. Our government has no power except that granted it by the people. Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. All of us need to be reminded that the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people. Well, if no one among us is capable of governing himself, then who among us has the capacity to govern someone else? All of us together, in and out of government, must bear the burden. The solutions we seek must be equitable, with no one group singled out to pay a higher price. We hear much of special interest groups. Well, our concern must be for a special interest group that has been too long neglected. It knows no sectional boundaries or ethnic and racial divisions, and it crosses political party lines. It is made up of men and women who raise our food, patrol our streets, man our mines and factories, teach our children, keep our homes, and heal us when we're sick. Professionals, industrialists, shopkeepers, clerks, cabbies, and truck drivers. They are, in short, we the people.
That's right.
It's not my intention to do away with government. It is rather to make it work. Work with us, not over us. To stand by our side, not ride on our back. Government can and must provide opportunity, not smother it. Foster productivity, not stifle it. If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before.
That's right.
Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. It is no coincidence that our present troubles parallel and are proportionate to the intervention and intrusion in our lives that result from unnecessary and excessive growth of government. It is time for us to realize that we're too great a nation to limit ourselves to small dreams. Let us begin an era of national renewal. Let us renew our determination, our courage, and our strength. And let us renew our faith and our hope. We must act today in order to preserve tomorrow. We, as Americans, have the capacity now, as we've had in the past, to do whatever needs to be done to preserve this last and greatest bastion of freedom. We're not, as some would have us believe, doomed to an inevitable decline. I do not believe in a fate that will fall on us no matter what we do. I do believe in a fate that will fall on us if we do nothing.
Man, just got to love Ronald Reagan, you know. Those of us old enough to have been alive back when, you know, Reagan was president of the United States, even prior to that when he was governor in California, driving all over the place, working for GE. Do a little research about him in the 1960s when he was kind of coming into his own political self as to what he would need to do to help the country. Fascinating man. But if you remember, I mean, the people are like, I wish things were more civil like they were back then. It's like, man, they hated him. They absolutely hated Ronald Reagan. I mean, they treated him horribly. When he got shot by Hinckley, potentially, could have been assassinated there. There was some sort of civility that came out, and they backed off just a hair. But they hated him, and they weren't fair to him. And, only when he got senile and was basically harmless to him, they recast, hey, we love him. We loved the way he was a communicator, and, he just could reach across the aisle and all that sort of stuff. And so Reagan was unique, and he was God's appointed president for that time. And it's just wonderful. He's just such a great communicator, isn't he? But he says some really cool things there. So as we kind of jump into today on business best practice, you'd say, well, Mel, what does Ronald Reagan have to say about, that was his inaugural address in 1981, part of it, of course. But he, he was not a 75 issue president. He was, he had a few really big things that he wanted to work on. The USSR at the time, the Soviet Union, the defeat of what could have been a clash of titans. The Cold War could have turned into a hot war, right? And that was one of his major focuses. And everything that he did was based on, we have to revive our country. We have to go back to being the republic that we were meant to be. We have to stop thinking that our destiny is baked. We have to stop saying that we're in the age of decline, that accepting all of this doom and gloom. We need to wake back up the American spirit. We need to make things in America. We need to have wealth, and we need to embolden the middle class. We need to honor the middle class. We don't need to ask them to do all the work, and then we'll take all the money and scam everybody like governments do. And most of all, he wanted to maintain the rights and freedoms that are given to us by God and not government. And so that was what really drove him. And everything he did, even like Star Wars and that kind of stuff, was aligned towards positioning America to be able to dominate in the world sphere as an America first. He was the original America first, in my lifetime president, right? I mean, he was all about, we've got to do what we need to do to instead of having all of Wall Street paved in gold, we need to get Main Street. And he couldn't do it all. I mean, you have to say, if you look back with a scorecard and you really grade a lot of what Reagan did, he grew the government. He couldn't shrink it as much as he wanted to. Illegal immigration got out of control. And so it's tough. That's a tough job, And so anyway, on the business best practice, what I want to focus on, a couple of things, one being agency and capability. And, when you're sitting around your business, large, small, indifferent, if you're running a board of a huge company, if you're at the C level of a big company, or if you're just in a mom and pop business, agency and capability are really important things to consider. Somebody sitting around the table that's just got a lot to say, it'd be like, well, do they even know what they're talking about? And are they even capable of helping us do it? And that brings me to a couple of things. I have some funny stories for y'all today. It's fascinating. Like, I call it the lowest common denominator in business. And it can be funny because sometimes I'll just make fun of the person that is the turd in the punch bowl, right? I mean, they're over there. You're looking at them. You're like, oh my gosh, does everybody else not see this? This person is a culture bandit. This person is pulling against us. They're on the other side of the road. We have to do something about this. And the truth is, maybe around that leadership table, people don't see it, but down in the company, everybody sees it. And when you walk in there and address that right out of the gate, they're like, whoa, who's that guy? Nobody's ever done that. Nobody's ever touched that golden goose or that sacred cow. And Mel just walked in here and went spat. And so I call it the lowest common denominator. This is an interesting thing that you can relate to in your business. If you're not careful, people that they don't have the agency that you need, but you've got them in a position. They don't have the capability that you need, but they're sitting there at the table. You got them sitting there with their pen out, and they're voting, and they're persuading other people to go their direction. Don't manage to the lowest common denominator in your business. It doesn't matter if that's a person. It doesn't matter if that's a process. It doesn't matter if it's a location. It doesn't matter if it's a product. And I don't necessarily subscribe. Y'all remember back? I remember back in the 90s. It wasn't unusual. You had Jack Welch and those guys. They would just go through and fire the bottom performing X% of their business. Which is brutal, right? But it was, in a way, what he was dealing with was the lowest common denominator. If you don't have a performance up into a minimum standard, we'll just wipe you off the deck. And so I'm not subscribing to that, although I'm not subscribing to it. never got my head around that, and that's not something that I did. But, one could make the case pretty easy that Jack Welch did better than me. But it's fascinating when you look at lowest common denominators, though, and you begin to teach that in your culture, that you don't settle for it, okay? So I've got a funny story for y'all. So you might say, like, okay, Mel, give us some examples of lowest common denominator. So I've got 2 stories for you. So one is more on a personal side with a friend, and the other is an actual real situation in business. And we'll keep the names indiscreet so that we don't hurt the innocent. But so I'll never forget, in college-ish, maybe right out of college, I go to see a friend. We're going to just go by and see him at his place. And let's just say he's in a pretty good sized city that's close enough by. So I drive over there to see him. Well, I get there. As I get out of the car, I'm walking up the stairs, and there's like ants. I mean, there's like a line of ants. It's like they've stacked themselves six high on top of each other. I've never seen so many ants. And I mean, they're like sugar ants or whatever. And this was at an apartment complex. And so I believe he was on the 2nd floor. So I go and I'm like, man, and I look at the ants. Well, the ants are I'm following them up the stairs. And so I get to the top of the first flight of stairs, and I'm like, well, that gum, they just turned and went over there, and that's where I'm going. So I go up the next flight. So I get to the door, and the ants are going into that apartment. I mean, I'm talking about by the droves. I've never seen them this wide and this tall, this thick. And so I'm like, my gosh, I hope somebody's not dead in here or something. So I knock on the door, and he comes in and lets me in, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, I'm talking about that place smelled like the Chlorotha, man. It smelled terrible. It smelled of pee, like animal pee, garbage. And I'm like, this is somebody I know. I wouldn't have expected this, but here we are. And so he's there. He's living with his parents at this place, which I'm like, whoa, you're living with your parents, and y'all all live like this. It'd be one thing if some 20-something-year-old kid did this, but this is mom and them too. So I'm at that point, I'm like, man, we need to go. I don't want to go in here. And so we walk in there, and I look over at the couch, and the couch is like just clawed up from cats. Just going over there, like cats will do. They'll just knead their claws and just tear a hole in the couch or whatever. And they're like, sit down. You want anything to drink? And I look over at the sink, and the sink is like, that's where the ants were going. The ants were going to the garbage can. There's there's just stuff everywhere, food that hadn't been cleaned up, garbage bag over there that's leaking on the floor. Woo! And I'm like, man, this is nasty. And so the ants are now not my mind, because I got to go sit down over there on the couch that looks like a cat has torn it to pieces, and it smells like cat pee. Guys, this is the God's honest truth. Okay, I promise you, this is too funny. This is awesome. It's not awesome, but it's funny. So all of a sudden, the cat that I hadn't seen yet, tomcat, comes tearing around the corner. Runs up to, I'm barely sitting on there. Like I'm hovering over that thing like I'm in a truck stop gas toilet or something, right? So I'm kind of sitting barely on it. I'm wearing shorts. I'm trying not to touch my legs to it. And the cat comes over there, boy, he's like, and he just tears into me, just tears into the couch, just pow, pow. And I look over at Mama and them and my friend, and I'm like, and before I could even say anything, the cat turns around. I don't know if y'all have boy cats, but they'll turn their butt to you. They'll flip their tail, and they will spray pee, stinky tomcat pee. And he peed all over the side of where he had just scratched. And I had to move or I'd have gotten peed on. It's surreal. I'm like, man, I'm going to wake up in a dream. So I look over at them, and I'm like, hey, and they're like, what? They watched the whole thing. And I'm like, nothing. It's all good. So I'm just sitting there, so I get up and we leave. And in that moment, that's one of the things, like, so that's, y'all are like, Mel, that's crazy. True story. But that is the lowest common denominator scenario. It's when you allow low common denominators to accumulate, you have no idea how normal low gets. And low can beget you lower and lower and lower. So just like the old saying that you're going forward or you're going backwards, you can't really sit still. The same thing with the continuum of high standards and low standards. And I was stunned. I was like, I never would have thought that this friend of mine might have lived in those kind of circumstances. And you say, well, Mel, that's fine. That's personal. That would never happen in business. Well, hold on, because this one's funny. So I go to work for a big company back in the day, and they want me to work in turnaround of a division. And in the division, they had a manufacturing facility. So I travel to visit this manufacturing facility, and I get there and I walk in. And it's hot. It's like right now. Dadgum, it's gotten hot, hasn't it? Like if you're anywhere in the South, it went from kind of sort of to now, okay, I can't breathe hot. But it was like that kind of hot. And I walk in and it's got a smell. I'm like, man, alive. It's like a big building and it had an upstairs kind of an attic type thing. And I'm like, man, you know, and I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking to myself, what's that smell? Lord, I don't want to have to stay here too long. And so I get in there, I walk in, and I notice that it's probably about 11 in the morning, right? So they're like, hey, if we want to go upstairs to tour this thing, we probably need to get up there before it gets too hot because of the bats. And nobody laughed or nobody had any comments, you know, see what I mean? Like the lowest common denominator was normal now. And I'm like, because of the what? And they're like, because of the bats. And I'm like Dracula's? Like Dracula bats? And they're like, yeah, we got some bat problem up there. I said, huh? I said, how long y'all had a bat problem? Oh, man, for years. Yeah, it's, you know, when it gets this hot, though, you know, you really have to shut it down because they'll start flying around and stuff. And I'm like, I'm looking for somebody to say, hey, man, we're just messing with you, or you gotcha, or, you know, maybe one of them turns into Dracula and mooah, you know, but I'm like, no, it's like everything's cool. And I'm like, no, man, we're going to stay right here on the bat thing. I'm like, so y'all got bats up in the attic, like few bats, or y'all see some bats? They're like, no, it's an infestation. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's have a meeting about getting rid of the bats. Oh, no, you're going to have to go through human resources and headquarters on that because, you know, you got to go through a whole process, you know, because of, you know, humane things we get rid of bats. I'm like, Mother Scratcher, we about to kill some bats is what we're going to do. Like, I'm in charge of this place now, and we will not have a bat infestation problem. And they looked at me, see what I mean? I'm coming in highest common denominator mindset. They have just, I'm talking about embedded way down into lowest common denominator thinking. Settling, putting up with stuff that shouldn't. So I get away from the boss people, and I go, you know, I don't go up there. They're like, do you want to go up there? I'm like, hell no, I ain't going up there with the bats. I'm like, I will get rid of the bats and then I'll go up there. So I'm like, no, I don't want to go up there. So I go talk to the couple of the people. Everybody's like, yeah, man, this is crazy. Like, you know, there's people that quit. They just won't work here like that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't blame them. So I finally said, well, I'm going to go up there. Y'all, I mean, I'm talking about there's bat guana doo-doo everywhere. It's all over the walls. It's on the floors. There's stuff up there. There's people working up there. And at a certain time, they go they batten down the hatches because the bats will fly out or whatever. And I'm like, well, how many of them do y'all think there are? And they're like, well, there's hundreds of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so long story longer, I got rid of the freaking bats, you know, and I made sure that and this would be something that I'll share with y'all. When leadership puts up with that kind of stuff, you got a leadership problem, okay? Like settling into something you should not tolerate, you should not subject people to. So, you know, the whole thing about uncommon sense, the fight to fix your workplace culture in the Wild West business, the whole thing about that is how do you fix your culture in a way that honors the people? Like there's plenty of people out there you can hire to come in and help you raise the bar. You go out there and, hey, we're going to do what it takes, man. We're going to get better results. I mean, they'll do it at all costs. They'll skin people up. They'll break the rules. They'll do whatever, you know. So there's more than one way to skin the cat to get results. But my focus was always, hey, man, I'm going to honor the people. I'm going to find a way to make it really good to work here. We're going to try to do the right thing the right way. We're going to try to roll out this best pledge. Everybody's going to walk around some flawed version of themselves, but we're going to look each other in the eye and say, man, let's be our best. Let's try to do this thing. And we're going to get rid of the bad guys. And so over the past couple of months, I'm like the guy that shows up at dinner and y'all are like, dude, you hadn't been here in 3 months. And so we didn't even set you a place. So thank y'all for letting me pop back in. I am going to try to do the Mel Blackwell Experience every 2 weeks and get back on the horse. And it's really good to be back in the studio. So thank you for giving me that break. I'm back in Scouts Rest Studio in Mountain Brook, Alabama, and it feels good. And so I'll try to keep it every 2 week period, bi-weekly, and get it knocked out. And but it's funny, you know, the over the past 2 or 3 months, part of what I've worked on is you write the book and then you get out there and you start talking to folks. You realize, wow, here's how this I can help people beyond just the book. But the book was really pretty simple in what it does. It starts with the pillars, what I call the 4 pillars. And I gave a keynote speech at the NSSF marketing leadership conference in Hilton Head back in mid-May, and it was so much fun. It was awesome. And it was a really great group. I mean, these are the president of Remington. These are the Liberty Ammunition. This is the who's who of that National Shooting Sports Foundation, and there's just really, really good people. And they've got forces. They've got headwinds coming at them. There's people that just don't like the Second Amendment, and in talking with those people, part of the keynote presentation was really based on 4 basic pillars. One, you've got to make the town safe. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying, hey, we've got to get rid of culture bandits. Then once you've made the town safe, and oh, by the way, only the bosses can make the town safe. We're the only ones with the authority. So make the dang town safe. Don't put it off. Make the town safe. Second thing you got to do is lower the slope. The third thing you do then is you align the team. Once you've done those 3 things in that order, you can raise the bars. You really can get in there and say, let's see how fast this joker will go. It's a good bit of racing and pit stopping through the first 3 that, hey, I've got to make the town safe. Well, you're working on a flying airplane. You can't just stop usually. Maybe you can, but most of the time I've ever had to do anything, I'm doing heart surgery on a moving person. And so figuratively, of course, but that's what it is, right? I'm trying to make this town safe. Then we're going to lower the slope. Then we're going to align this team. And then we're going to go out here and raise the bar. And so you got to be careful because early on in the process, everybody like, I like this Mel guy. He's real good. He's going to build us a country club around here. And I'm like, no, we're actually going to race. We're going to Ricky Bobby this thing, dude. We're going to get after it. Anybody that's ever worked around me, they know that. Hey, nice guy, pretty intense. He's serious about this stuff. And oh, by the way, when you put that joker in the race car, he's Ricky Bobby. He's not. He wants to go fast, but he isn't going to wreck. He's going to build this thing so that it'll race. And that's what we do. Well, you can't do that with these lowest common denominators. Can you believe that? So I go to one friend's house, and their cat comes up and tears a hole in the couch and sprays the dang thing. And I'm in the ants everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't have to live this way. And then you go and say, well, that would never happen in business. And I go to a very reputable, huge company. I'm in there. I go to this manufacturing facility. Hey, take it over. And it's bat infested, and it's going to stay bat infested because they're worshiping the problem, right? So the problem worship is a sign of lowest common denominators. And the square-wheeled wagon that I talk about is what you've got to do. You've got to eradicate those square wheels so that you can get everybody aligned. You can't align the team. When you tell somebody, hey, yeah, I know it's going to be real hard to work here because I got you pulling the square-wheel wagon, and they look at you and they're like, well, why don't you get me some round wheels, Bo? And you're like, nah, I can't do that because, whatever. And that's what lowest common denominators are. Lowest common denominators are excuses for the square wheels. And anybody leader that makes excuses for those square wheels and puts the horse, Jesus always says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Well, square-wheeled wagons, yoke is animal abuse, and the burden is darn near impossible. So, being a good shepherd in business is when you look out there and you see people that are fighting the slope of your business treadmill, and it's just unreasonably high, lower it, and then if there's people between you and that getting that slope lowered, that they might be lowest common denominator people. They're worshiping problems because they don't. So I'll tell you, in meetings, if you went right now and took your organizational chart, your accountability chart, and you said, I want to look for anybody in this business that has lowest common denominator thinking. They're the can't do people. They're the, well, you can't do that. And they'll get a following, and they'll get people they'll bring people down. I'll tell y'all something that's pretty interesting. So one of the things that I've done with Uncommon Sense is I have the Uncommon Sense Leadership Experience. It's pretty cool. And it happened to me. I had a CEO of a business that's a Fortune 100 company reach out to me and say, hey, man, I first of all, it blew me away because he called. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? Everything I do is confidential in this world, so I'm not going to say who it is. I'm not going to talk about specifics about who they are. I can talk about it generically, but I sign an NDA. I'm going to embed with this company. We're going to learn maybe some of the flies in the ointment. So I'm not going to talk about it, but I can talk about it generally because nobody knows who this company is. But he calls and he says, hey, I've read the book. I need to raise these bars, but I'm a little concerned because I got to get going now. Like the time is of the essence. And I'm like, all right, well, let's do it. And I said, I've never done this before, but you'll pilot this program. Since then, I've had another major Fortune 500 company reach out, and I kicked that off today. It's pretty cool because what I'm doing is I'm working with, they read Uncommon Sense over an 8 to 12 week period. It's completely flexible. We design it for them. They read it together. Usually it's the C-level team and then one layer under. So the C-level team and all of their direct reports. So they'll buy 30 or 40 books. They'll read the book. It's like a book club. And then they'll meet every week. And then I join them every month for a couple of hours. But I'm working with the leader. I'm working with that CEO or that president, whoever that senior executive is that's in charge of that group, that's the captain. And behind the scenes, we're working intently. I'm reviewing the org charts. I'm working with them. When I am able to join that call, I'm dialed in, and I can really help them. And I have to tell y'all, it's so much fun. But in doing that, one of the things that we ran into with this exceedingly large organization, we ran into lowest common denominator thinking. It was totally accepted. In fact, it was almost like the dog poop in the living room that everybody just walks around it, and then until a neighbor comes over and goes, hey, and you're like, hey, yeah, it's been there forever. And then you're embarrassed, and you're like, we shouldn't have dog poop in the living room. And so it's just, taking care of things. We've talked about that. Like Grandma Blackwell said, take care of things, Mel. Here's how you bait a hook. No, we don't just throw all the berries in the pie. We put them in there just like this. No, you don't just throw sugar. You do here this. What is that, Grandmama? That's a measuring spoon, Mel. Like we actually measure. We take care of things. What a wonderful lesson for a kid. And it applies to business. It applies to the biggest company and the most powerful 6 people sitting around at a board table is we've got to take care of things. And lowest common denominator thinking is not taking care of things. So what we get into, section 2 on this part, what we get into this is you also have people that they're culture bandits in the sense that they're trying to trip you up on. Let's just say, like one of the clients I'm working with now, huge company, everybody would know the name, huge communication company. This company is engaging me. They bought 40 books. We're going to work through it together over an 8 to 10 week period. One of the biggest issues they have is corporately they've been given 156% increase this year over last year. Wow, think about that. They've got a huge increase. Well, how are they going to do it, right? And so when you get all that people in the room and you say, how we're going to do this, anybody that's not on board with, yes, we can do this thing. It is a tough thing to do to get that kind of an increase, but it's also possible. So the first thing that happens when you get that hard goal, you get that challenge for the year that's like, man, this is going to be tough. You cannot, the rope is determined at that point. Anybody that says it can't be done, we're doomed. This will never work. That's the other side of the rope, y'all. And it could be somebody you really respect, and you have to look at them and you have to hit the button. That's the lowest common denominator. You have to hit the bell and go, be careful, because you just grabbed the other side of the rope. Now that may be all it takes. Oh, Mel, I didn't mean to. Okay, all right, but don't do that. Like if you can't get over here and believe and help me figure out how to do it, the how journey, the subvision. That's what the people that work for us expect from us. We're going to get them there. So, yeah, you might sit around and go, man, this is going to be hard. But fatalistic thinking is lowest common denominator thinking. Yeah, we can do it. We can do it. I can't tell y'all how many times I was in situations through my career where I took it on and we make a turn, and then that next year they hand you a budget and you look at it and you're like, my gosh, I'd have been better off to sandbag, I mean, when you play hard ball and you hit batting average and you do what you do, and then they come back and they go, well, that'll be the norm now. And they'd be like, well, guys, y'all know that was pretty hard. Like, I can't do that every year. Well, here's your new budget. Why? They expect more. That's what they do. And I couldn't go cry and whine. I just had to say, well, all right, let me go make sure that we can do this. I may not have a team that can do it. I may have to restructure the team a little bit. I mean, everything's on the table. We can't miss our goals. We start doing our job at goal. Missing a goal is a choice. We will not miss a goal. We got to go figure out how to do this. I need people around me that start out saying we will figure out how to do it. And yeah, there's those moments that you put your head in your hands and go, I don't know this just looks impossible. But you never buy into it. And you don't want anybody around you that does, because you say, no, we're going to figure it out. But yeah, it's hard and it sucks, and I wish they wouldn't have done it. But it is what it is, right? We got to go. We got to get this thing done. So part of this too is when you're sitting around a leadership table and you're trying to create a way to run your business. I've mentioned this before. You can't build your business around every single thing that might happen. Let's just call it the 100%. The 100% of all the things that could happen, including those things that are rarely going to happen, that maybe just only happen in this part of the country or that division. You're trying to get a box. You're trying to figure out what's normal. You build your business around a box. And then that 10, 15, or 20% of what I call individual case basis, those one-offs, you don't try to build a policy to apply to the 100% for the 10, 15, 20% of those random issues that might come up later. Okay? You might have to build some ICB, I call them ICB, individual case basis, some sort of way to say, hey, we got to get in a room and figure this out. But if you go design your business to be able to flex and handle all 100% of everything, well, you're missing the opportunity to get really, really, really good at the 80% that matters. And so, or it could be a less number than that. But these people that are lowest common denominators will play that against you too, because they'll say, you don't have this figured out for this one scenario. So now what are we going to do? They're always playing the gotcha game. So here's what I'm saying. Okay, it sounds negative, Dan, I'm sorry, but I've been experiencing other people's businesses since I hadn't been doing my podcast out there really trying to help these in these cases, huge companies deal with some really, 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 really talented, potent teams. They got the same issues. They've got the same issues. They got the culture bandits. They've got the lowest common denominator people. They got the people in the room going, it can't be done. I swear it can't be done. This is crazy. And I'm like going, get that guy out of here. All right. So, I don't do something with him, but he can't be in here because we don't need that we don't need that negativity in here. We will figure out how to do it. Whatever it takes. Hair lips every dog in Georgia. We're going to figure out how to do it. And you have to have that tenacity. So I hope that's very helpful. Just to kind of recap, it's important when you're dealing with teams and you're assembling people that you have high standards. It's really hard to set high bars if you work in an unsafe town with culture bandits and a tug of war going on where there's more than one side of the road. You've got to make the town safe. And it can be done, and the whole Uncommon Sense book is about that. Once you've got that safe town, okay, now you can start working on lowering the slope. What do I mean by lowering the slope? All the square wheels. Like, you can't do the right thing. You can't pay people the right way if you make them drag square wheels around. But when they realize that, hey, we've made the town safe and we're going to do what it takes to lower the slope because we care. We care about the living creatures in our aquarium, the culture. The culture of our business is the aquarium. Make that a resoundingly healthy aquarium and watch. The fish don't even think about. Like they just perform. And then you have to align the team. So there's a science and there's an art to it, but there's a real science to how you align the team. You got to structure first, people second. You've got to do what it takes. You've got to have good comp plans. You got to pay people to do what you want them to do. And we found that in these last couple of leadership team experiences. They're paying people to do the exact opposite, and they're going, well, these people don't do what we want them to do. I said, let me look at the comp plan. I'm like, whoa, you're paying them to do that. Well, we have to because of the square wheels on the wagon. I'm like, let's do it all. Let's get rid of these square wheels so that we can really align the team, so that we can what, y'all? Y'all say it with me. Raise the bar. And raising the bar in the Uncommon Sense, cultural way, you raise the bar through a resoundingly wonderful place to work. Now, high standards, and you're going to look when you swing for the fences and win a championship. Guess what your fans want the next year? Another freaking championship. Everybody wants everybody to be the University of Alabama. We just want to win more and more and more championships. Eventually, you might hit a lull, but they're going to expect more the more you do. So let's just do more. And so I hope that's very helpful for you. Let's roll into the second segment here, talking a little bit about Thomas Sowell. This is really fascinating. I think you guys will find this interesting. Some of you probably looked at this before, but it's a good refresher. So in this clip, we'll play about a 3-minute clip. Thomas Sowell's being interviewed. This is fascinating. He talks about two different visions, and he says that neither one is really right or wrong, but you can tell he leans more towards another. He talks about a constrained vision, okay, which is the one held by the founders and most patriots and doers throughout history. Remember, I'm going to tie this back to capability, right? You listening to people that have all these ideas and aren't capable who don't really have a grounding in why they have these capables, that don't really have an agency based in experience, that can be very dangerous. To me, that's the lowest common denominator, and that's happening in our country. So you have constrained vision that's, basically like our American patriots, the founders. It says humans are flawed. It says knowledge is dispersed, and progress comes through trade-offs, institutions, and incentives, not top-down redesigned by experts. Does that make sense? So a little bit more of, pushing things down to the people, let the people deal with it. They're not led by their betters. Okay, that's constrained vision. Unconstrained vision is held more by intellectuals, okay, and credentialed elites. Humans are perfectible if only the right experts are in charge. Okay, so the quality of human life is in the hands of a few elites. This leads to social engineering, elite control, and often disastrous results for ordinary people. So this is going to tie into the second segment. I'll give you guys a teaser because it's going to be a good one, where we talk about this historical rare window that we live in, where we have God-given rights and self-government, and our government is what set it up. The United States, God bless America, 250 years, happy 4th of July, happy 4th of July. And, our founders they set up America from a constrained vision standpoint. And what we're seeing is a clash, and we always have had a clash historically, but in America now we have a clash where you're even seeing communism take root, and that's what it is now, where you've got elite classes, which, historically they were aristocracy, but today they're kind of more the professional managerial, class, the Democrat Socialists of America class, right? And we'll talk about that. I've got some statistics that are fascinating about that. But let's listen to Thomas Sowell here. It's about a 3-minute interview.
Now, in a conflict of visions, you talk about two fundamentally differing visions, and these two fundamental visions underlie an enormous amount of the Western political tradition.
Yes.
The constrained vision and the unconstrained vision. Let me take a stab at a tight definition of each, and then you correct it for me. Under the constrained vision, an exemplar would be Adam Smith.
Yes.
Human nature is flawed, but it's fixed. And the question is, how do we erect institutions that contain our flaws and permit us to live in the best possible society, given in effect the fallen nature or the fallen character of human nature? Fair?
Yes, absolutely.
So when you say constrained, it's a vision of human nature itself. Human nature is fixed, flawed, and therefore we operate within constraints. The constraints human nature itself provides. Unconstrained is human nature itself is malleable. We must remake the world. There are institutions causing this pain and suffering.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Now, let me give you another quotation. The two great revolutions in the 18th century in France and in America can be viewed as applications of these differing visions. Explain that one.
Well, in France, the idea was that if you simply put the right people in charge and created the right institutions, then all these problems would go away. In the United States, it was assumed from the outset that there were very limited things you could do, and what you needed to do above all was to minimize the damage done by the flaws of human nature. And this is why the United States, for example, has this Constitution, so much lamented by some of those who believe in the French Revolution, in which this group is offset by that group, and nobody can sort of run wild. If you believe that what you need is to have the right leaders who love the people and so on, a messiah, as it were, then your problems are solved. But if you don't believe there is any political messiah, and you believe that you have to make sure that all people are restrained in what they are able to do, then you have the separation of powers, you have elections, you have constitutions, you have all kinds of things hemming you in.
The constrained vision of the law, and here I quote A Conflict of Visions. Oliver Wendell Holmes expressed it when he declared, "The life of the law has not been logic, it has been experience," close quote.
Yes.
How is he giving expression to the constrained vision?
There is no one who, from sheer intellectual power, can tell you what the law ought to be, that we learn from trial and error simply because we're not capable of learning everything just by figuring it all out in advance.
You write, the unconstrained vision, again I'm quoting you, has tended historically toward creating more equalized economic and social conditions in society, even if the means chosen implied great inequality in the right to decide such issues and choose such means, close quote. Inequality in the right to decide issues. Does that tell us why the left in the United States seems so much more comfortable with having courts make social policy?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what's going on.
Absolutely. That they want equality of outcomes, and they will choose how to make the outcomes equal. But they don't want equality of choice on the part of the people themselves.
Man, you just got to love Thomas Sowell. Super smart. So you can look into that. He wrote a whole book on that. And he goes into some conversation about having done some research and looking at, okay, who are the poorest people, in societies? And they're in every society, no matter, and you go back in time. So some things just kind of sort of are. So like the poorest people in America at the time, and this was not too long ago, were white Appalachians that they lived. They had they died 10 years sooner than everybody else. They were poor. Their health was bad. But this exact same phenomenon existed in societies all over the world. And so it's just fascinating. It's fascinating. And, sometimes Thomas Sowell will take a hard stand and go, this is the right or the wrong. He doesn't do that here. He just simply recognizes that, look, there's two paradigms at play. The people that think they can just fix everything and that they're here to do that. And that's kind of what Reagan was talking against, saying that government's not the solution, they're the problem. Well, these power people, they want to get in the government. Why? Because they can be in charge. And so this ties back to some pretty cool stuff. This will be a fascinating segment. So we've talked in the past about less than 6%, and the number is actually less than that. But less than 6% of people that have ever lived on the earth have lived like we do in America, where we have freedoms and we are free to own land. We are free to pursue our lives. We're not oppressed by some sort of authority. And so this goes back to the lowest common denominator thinking, people that don't have agency, that are flapping their lips, and we should just make them leave the room. It's like, I don't want to hear what you got to say. And they're not capable anyway. So who are these people? So I'll give you an example of just this. We need to look at statistics. So you need to start saying, who is that person? Okay. So if you ask that about me, you go, who is this guy? Well, you can go check it out and go, I don't like that Mel Blackwell guy. Okay. Well, don't like me, but I have agency and I'm capable. I've proven both. So you just may not like me, and that's okay. But I'm not an idiot that doesn't belong to be able to talk about the things of which I'm aware. But the Democratic Socialists of America, racial breakdown. Okay, y'all. Okay. Now, these people are the white people are demonic, women and girls, men and girls sports, transgender for everyone, just turning everything that is right into wrong and wrong into right. Okay. They are 85% white. They're 9% Hispanic. They're 5% Asian, then they're 4% black. This is your Democratic Socialists of America racial breakdown. This is as of the DSA survey of members, May 2021. So I don't think it's changed too much. But that's who's Mondami, whatever his name is. That's who all these socialists, these aren't socialists, y'all. These aren't Democrat socialists. These are freaking communists, okay? These communists, they represent a major threat to what we have in America. Now, what's fascinating is when you dig into that, okay, who are these 85% white Democrat socialists? Okay, the demographics of these people should not shock you. These are elite. These are wealthy white people who've either been able to live off of the dole, they've lived off their parents, they've lived off some type of trust fund, they're associated getting their money from some NGO, but they've never had to have agency or capability. They're a product of the public education system. They're a product of kind of an almost communist slant in higher education, and that's who they are. And their sole purpose is just to tear down what we have. So keep that in mind, all right? So as we look at that, okay, that's those people that want to take over and they want to redo America in the image of communism, which, I mean, y'all, that's a street fight. I'm not calling people to arms or anything. What I'm saying, though, is when somebody comes into your house and says, yeah, I think I'll just be taking over and I'll be ruling your house now. Well, it's a butt whooping right there. That person's going to find themselves rolling down the hill into the street. Get out of my house. And in America, we're letting them take root everywhere. And it's like, no, get out of our house. Take my word for it. When Reagan gave that speech in 1981, he spent the next, 2 terms of his presidency to try not to have us in exactly this place. And we've let the communists in. It's crazy. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gad Saad, really brilliant guy. And he just released a book. It's called Suicidal Empathy, Dying to Be Kind. Suicidal Empathy, Dying to Be Kind. It's really good. Really good. The guy's really smart. And he's a good writer, and he makes a great case. And it's the kind of thing you put down, and you're like, dang. It doesn't leave you just all worried. It just explains things very, very well and puts forth some solutions. But this is really fascinating. So dying to be kind is kind of this altruistic mindset that you're seeing Western civilization, where they have this misdirected compassion that overrides reason and survival instincts, okay? Thus suicidal empathy. It creates this inverse morality, he calls it. And that's where abstract causes or external groups are prioritized over concrete safety of one's own people. And you say, okay, well, give me an example. Okay, how about the 190,000 heat-related deaths, over in Europe? Okay, that's crazy. But in Europe right now, they've gotten rid of air conditioning. So I had to do some research on this. So in Europe, okay, you have 19 to 20% of homes overall have air conditioning in Europe. Germany has about 6% homes with air conditioning. The UK has 4 to 5%. That's less than 5% of homes in the UK have air conditioning. In France, where everybody makes fun of them because they smell like BO, they have 25 to 28%. So at least a quarter of them. And so it says recent summers produce 50 to 68,000 heat-related deaths per year in Europe. Okay, concentrated mainly among the elderly. Man, that's just, what if we just did something over here? It'd be like, yeah, all our old people are dying because we cut off the water over there. And it's like, okay, so we've cut off the air conditioning. We demonize. So what they do is they demonize something. It's suicidal empathy. It's like, we've got to save the environment. For who? For human beings. Okay, so let's save it for the human beings. Let's get rid of the air conditioning. Okay, well, what about all them old people out there? They're probably going to die. Oh no, we have to. And it's like, okay, well, if we're doing it for human beings, and shouldn't we care about the old human beings? No. So it's just kind of bizarre. And so do a little research on that. I mean, you have the situation over in Europe where they're literally saying now, some of them, I mean, not all of them, but some of their loonies, that some of the people that lack agency, that lack capability, are over there saying that it's our policies towards our energy policies and our air conditioning and the things that we do in America have created this heat wave over in Europe. Isn't that something? And that kind of takes you back to what Thomas Sowell was saying. Like in Thomas Sowell's mindset, you've got these two camps. In one camp, things just happen. In the other camp, we need to get involved so we can change what happened. That whole environment group thinks that they can jump out there between God and man and fix the environment. And you have to ask yourself, what are they really up to? So on homelessness as a cash crop, you actually have, in California alone, about $24 billion over 5 years for homeless and housing efforts, with even broader tallies reaching $37 billion since 2019. You've got these major cities that have poured billions more in, okay? And you say, well, how's that work out? So if you look at per homeless person, right? And this is not just California, but California is a great example. So all money sources, including non-government organization grants, okay? You've got this unholy alliance of criminals, insiders within federal agencies, insiders within state agencies. You've got all these spin-off nonprofits that are affiliated with NGOs, and they're just robbing us blind. They really are. But they don't want to solve homelessness because every homeless person generates $25,000 to over $70,000 per homeless person. And they're taking those monies and they're not spending it on homeless. You wonder, why is the homeless problem not getting better? Because they're making money. Every one of them is a dang cornstalk, right? And so they just keep making cash off the crop. So we're talking about the core programs plus food, plus healthcare, plus policing benefits. It's a grand total of about $70,000 per homeless person. And the DOJ HUD task force thinks that it's over $260 million in fraud annually. That's unbelievable. I think it's a lot more than that. But, crime is a cash crop, okay? So this is what Conrad was talking about. So you actually have funding for victim services, reentry programs, community anti-violence initiatives, and related NGO private contracts. So based on my research, it's about $3,000 plus per crime in high crime contexts. And they're skimming off anywhere from 35 to 50% of that. So they're using high crime. They're not solving the crime. The high crime gives them access to more federal dollars. So when these have these high crime rates, they turn them out. And then you have the revolving door of, well, if somebody commits a crime, why would we let them out? Because they're a cash crop. Let them go rob another store, shoot another person. Who cares? It'll get us more money. And so they're generating money. And you say, well, Mel, why would they do that? Because they're stealing it. It's one thing to be such a maniacal, depraved human being that you just want to hurt other people. Okay. It's even another thing that you would be willing to hurt them if you can make money off of it. So they're hurting homeless people. They're making $70,000 plus per homeless person. Dude. I mean, hey man, I want to get in that homeless business. It's paying good. It's like, yeah. And every one of them is a cornstalk or they say, look out. They say, oh boy, I got me a good crop of homeless people going. It'd be like, that's just depraved, right? It's true. It's true. It's true. So it gets worse. So elderly care, Medicaid, Medicare, hospice fraud. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. It doesn't matter if you're old or if you're young. If you hear this right here and don't see it as a lowest common denominator in our society, then your mirror's broken. Your heart's broken. We're hurting people. And you know what? Maybe you don't feel it, but they're robbing you blind. They're stealing you blind. And it's just got to stop. These people are becoming rich off of the cash crop of homeless and criminals. And then you have elderly care. So RFK Jr. came out just recently and he's like, there's over $3.5 billion in Medicare hospice fraud just in LA County alone. $3.5 billion, y'all. $3.5 billion, 3,500 million. My gosh, we could all live so good, and then they're just rife with fraud. And then Dr. Oz came out and said the LA concentration, where they have found almost 1/3 of all national hospice activity in Los Angeles, fake enrollments, unnecessary billing, over $6.5 billion in national fraud. So if you said, okay, how's that come down to people per elderly in care systems, all things plus hospice emphasis, 12 to 65,000 plus annually per elderly person. That is insane. NGO private billing grant share 5,000 to 30,000 plus. And so those numbers kind of confuse me, to be honest with you. But as I looked at it, what we're seeing though is homeless, criminals, old people, cash crop. Just people are getting in there. And so you say, well, what does that mean? It means that we got corruption in our government. We got corruption in these NGOs. So federal government, you have corruption. You have corruption within the Senate and in the House, because those people could stop this in a minute, but they won't. If you notice, I won't let you fix my fraud, so I won't mess with your fraud. There's very few of them up there that can resist the kind of wealth they can make by looking the other way. And it's really, really got to change. Now, illegal immigrant aid as a cash crop, my gosh. The estimates I see place annual taxpayer costs tied to illegal immigration at $151 billion with a B dollars. $151,000 million. Insane. So I say all that to try to put on the table that in our business, a lowest common denominator is something that you call out. You know, the cat runs in there, the ant's going into the room, cat scratches and pees on your leg, and you stand up and go, okay, I'm out of here. You go to work somewhere, you're working for this great company, and they've got a bad infested manufacturing facility, and it takes you walking in there to go, enough, we got to get rid of the bats. You know, that's lowest common denominator thinking. That's master of the obvious. That's uncommon sense, y'all. But look at what we're allowing in our society. Look at what we're allowing from these people that want to be our betters. The people that want to rule you do this. They're the ones that are doing it. They're the ones that are allowing it. And we've got to take our country back. I want to say happy 4th of July to everybody. And I hope that this is just a really safe and wonderful Independence Day for us all. But you know, you're looking at greater than $250 billion that's being built out of our country. And that doesn't mean they threw it away. It means people put it in their pockets by using human beings that are in helpless state as a cash crop. I think that's the lowest common denominator. All right, let's go out with something funny. I like this guy. I call him Derrick Yells. That used to be what he called, but we've heard him before. But let's listen to him again. This is fantastic.
This is our first child, and I never realized as a heavyset man how helpful I would be in her pregnancy journey. Everything she's going through, I've already been through. I'm serious. She goes, Derrick, I can't sleep on my stomach or my back. I go, me either, Alyssa. The doctor said if I sleep on my back again, I could die, you know? And I had to teach her about putting a pillow between her legs. I go, you're going to have to sleep. And she goes, my hips, they hurt. I go, you're going to have to flip more, Alyssa. I mean, everything she's going through, it's all relatable. She goes, none of my clothes fit. I told her, I go, will it ever end, you know? Our dryer's running hot. All my polos look like crop tops, man. She said she was starting to chafe. She goes, I'm chafing bad. And I said, you're talking to the right guy. And I had to teach her about Gold Bond. I go, listen, you're going to smell like pawpaw, but you're going to be on the move, okay? And I go, don't put too much on and then sit down. You'll be covered in it, Alyssa. A dab will do you, okay?
Man, that is so funny. That guy is funny. What's good about him is he starts out all, and he just gets louder and louder. That's why I called him Derrick Yells. But, well, look, it's have a happy 4th of July. It's coming on a Saturday this year, which is fun in its own way. And also, hey, if you know anybody out there that's running a business, it doesn't have to be a huge business. It just, if they're serious about trying to improve their business, if they get to a point they want to raise the bars to be more successful, maybe have more time back, tell them to get up with me and look at my Uncommon Sense leadership experience. We just read the book together, and I get involved. I roll up my sleeves, and we go make the town safe. We lower the slope. You know, we align the team, and then, baby, we raise the bar, and it's fun. And I really enjoy it. But I just help. I don't get on the field. I just coach. But anyway, well, I really appreciate everybody. It's good to be back in the studio, and I'll be back with you guys in a couple of weeks. Cheers.